What's up, YouTube? And welcome to the next entry in my console collection series. Today I'm going to be talking about the Sega Master System, which is a system that I never really owned as a child, nor did I know a single person that did own it. So I am very late to the game with this system. As always, I'm going to go ahead and start talking about the system itself, and then we'll move on to my software collection that I have for this system. So this is my original and pretty beat up Sega Master System. I got this around the year 2000 at a flea market for about 15 bucks. And it's not beautiful. It's got these weird specks on it. I don't know if you can see that very well. But not really sure what that is, how to get it off. But anyways, the point is it definitely does the job. These systems are actually very reliable. I've never really known a Master System to go bad. And this is the original version of the hardware. There also was a Master System 2, which was much smaller. However, it lost a lot of the functionality that the original system had. So this is actually not the way that I typically play my Master System games, but I thought I would show it for the purpose of the video. So a couple things about the console itself. You have your power button here in the front. There is a power light, which is very nice. However, it kind of lights up over here, which is a strange place for it. You have your two controller ports. If you see, they have the same pinout as a Genesis controller or even like an Atari 2600 controller. You have a card input here for the very early card games that are very much like TurboGrafx Hue cards. And you also have your cartridge slot up top, which plays your typical Master System games. The one thing that makes the Master System a huge thorn in my side is this feature right here, in that the pause button is on the console. Not on the controllers, on the console. So that is a huge pain in the butt for me, because every time I want to pause my game, I have to get up out of my seat and pause it, usually at an inconvenient time of the game. I don't know what they were thinking with that, but definitely a design flaw of the Master System itself. I also like this very 80s graphic here, just showing the diagram of the system to your TV with the controllers and everything like that. It's very interesting retro future type graphics. You also have a reset button on the console. That's not such a big deal and very typical of the time. So one thing that makes the Master System very cool is the inputs on the back of the system. You have your AV out, which is the exact same as a Genesis 1 AV out. The one thing I think is very cool about the system and very forward-thinking is it is RGB ready out of the box. So you can just plug a Genesis RGB cable into this and get beautiful quality picture out of the system very easily if you have an upscaler. You've got your RF input, and then of course just an AV or AC adapter input on the back there as well. So that's pretty much the system itself. I'll also show you a couple of the very basic accessories that came with the Master System. You have your original controller, which also has a very annoying design feature outside of no pause button. It's that the controller wire is on the side of the controller. They later fixed this in another edition of it, but I have a couple different ones, and very annoying. As you can see, that cord just gets completely in your way as you're trying to play the game. So luckily they fixed that with a later design of the controller. But the controller itself is okay. It's kind of small. The buttons are very squishy. They're not extremely responsive. The D-pad I do actually like. It's pretty comfortable, and has this unique, like, all the way around rectangle style design. So very basic controller. You also have your light phaser, which was used for several of the light gun games on the system. This is the later version of it that has the safety tip they painted on the end, I guess due to some kind of lawsuit or issue they were having at the time. Very nice feeling gun, and actually I like it a lot better than the NES Zapper as far as overall comfort. It also has that really neat space future look to it, so very interesting design for that accessory. A lot of games do support the light phaser. I will say it has a good quality library of light gun games, so definitely a good one to have, you know, if you're collecting Master System stuff. So as I said, I very rarely actually use my Master System to play my Master System games, and especially since I just got this new accessory. This is the Power Base Mini FM, and this lets you play your Master System games in a Genesis, Genesis 2, or a Genesis CDX. So very handy tool. And also the reason I like this better than the Master System is it has the FM sound that many of the games support built into it. And that was something that was stripped out of the US Master Systems, and really makes a big difference for how good the games sound if you have it. So this is my preferred way to play the Master System games. It's just sleeker, it's much easier, and you can just pop this in a Genesis. But the one thing I will say about the system is it does not have the card slot, which means you can't play those card games, and you also can't use the Sega 3D glasses if you're using this accessory. So anyway, that said, that is a brief overview of the hardware and my history with it. Like I said, I never had one of these as a kid. I didn't know anybody that had one of these as a kid, and I was probably almost in college, if not late high school years, before I even met a friend that bought a Master System once they had gotten cheap. That friend actually went on to collect just about every game released for the system. I think there's around 130 or 140 US releases. It's not a huge library, but there are definitely a lot of difficult games to find. So that being said, let's go ahead and take a look at my game collection for the system. After revisiting a lot of the games on the Power Base Mini FM, I'm actually thinking about bulking up this collection in the near future. So you may see more new games coming into my library soon. And if you have any Master System games that I'm missing, I would love to hear about it in the comments, because I'm really starting to get into the system more. So anyway, going into my game library, these games come in cases just like the Sega Genesis. They're these great clamshell cases, very sturdy. The Master System games had this strange white grid design that really left a very basic look to their games. I'll also say the artwork is rather crude on a lot of the games, so it's kind of a downer that the overall quality of the packaging wasn't that great. This first one is Alien Syndrome. This is a port of the Sega arcade hit. Sega, produced a ton of great arcade games in the 80s, and a lot of them made it to the Master System for ports. I would say at the time, if you were a kid and you just wanted like a version of an arcade game, these were great. But as of now, there's so many ways you can play better versions of these. It really doesn't make sense to stick with some of the classic arcade games on this system. So, Alien Syndrome, just okay. Then we have a series that got its start on the Master System, and that is Alex Kidd. I think there was a total of like 4 or 5 different Alex Kidd games for the system, and I only have a couple of them. This is a really fun one, though. This is Alex Kidd in High Tech World, and all the Alex Kidd games had strange themes to them. So the one that I'd really like to get is Alex Kidd in Shinobi World, but that one goes for a lot of money. So anyway, they're kind of like the Mario of Master System. And this next one, I just noticed how disgusting the case is. I don't know why I never cleaned that. But this is Alex Kidd, The Lost Stars. This is a particularly good Alex Kidd game. I would say this is, one of the mid to later released ones, but definitely a high quality one. I remember playing this one and really enjoying it. Next is a game I barely remember at all. This is Black Belt. And if you notice just how basic the artwork was in the very early games, I mean, they would literally just have like a body part on the cartridge case. There's nothing about this that makes me want to play this game. And probably one of the big reasons why I can't remember it very well. I would assume this is kind of like Kung Fu for the NES, just based on the screenshots, but definitely not a memorable release. This next one's one I got recently. This one you can see is slightly different because it has a black case versus a white case. And the reason is this was a game that was published by Activision. There was very little third-party support of publishers that release games on their own for the Master System. So I'm guessing because Activision was one of the few that chose to, they wanted their games to stick out. And they released them in this slightly different packaging. It actually looks a lot more like a Genesis game. This is a decent shooter, but it actually has quite a bit of slowdown issues, and I don't know, it just doesn't really seem as advanced as it should be for an 88 released game. So my understanding is this was like a Sega developed game in Japan, and they passed on it for US release, so Activision put it out. The next one is one I have been absolutely obsessed with lately. I really love this game. This is Captain Silver. It is based on an obscure Data East arcade game, which I've never ever seen before. Based on the footage I've seen of this, I really think I like this better than what the arcade game looks like. And just a really, really quirky platform action game. I don't know, just some very weird themes in this game, but I really do enjoy it. The other thing I'll say about this one is it gets difficult really quick in the next few, like level 3 and 4, and I haven't really been able to get beyond that. This is one of the games that does support the FM sound if you have that Power Base Mini FM, and sounds fantastic with that. It actually adds not only just better quality sound, but more instrumentation to the music too, so it's a really neat device. So definitely can recommend Captain Silver. Next is a game I picked up not too long ago. This is Casino Games, and the reason I wanted this is not just because it has blackjack and all that junk on it, is because it had a pinball game as part of it, and I love video pinball games. This one's a very average video pinball game, but you can tell that this is one of the later releases because there's a little bit of stuff actually going on with the artwork, including that very 80s Miami Vice looking couple there, ready to hit it big on the slot machine. So, just an average release, I would say. One thing I think that held the Master System back is just a lack of licensed character games, and also some of the games that were released were just so heavily traditional Asian in theme that I just don't think they were a big hit for US audiences. So this is one that kind of falls in that category. This is Cloudmaster. It was originally a Taito arcade game, and Hot B handled the home port of it. This was a very traditional, I believe it was like ancient Chinese tale that this story is based on, and I'm sure the majority of that just went right over US audiences' heads. However, it's a pretty good shooter. If you like horizontal shooters, I would say this is one of the better ones on the system. My only downside to this is you can get this on the Japanese PC Engine, and that version of it is much better. So basically, if you only have a Master System, I'd say get this, but if not, I would go for the PC Engine version. Next is a game that gets talked about with some controversy on the system because this is Double Dragon. And I think most American kids were used to playing Double Dragon on the NES. This one is very different than that. I don't know if I would say it's better, but it definitely is different. It also does support the FM sound and does sound pretty good with that, but overall I would probably prefer the play control of the NES version, even if this one might look marginally better. So, very cool that that actually made it to the system, because I would say this is probably one of the more recognizable franchises that actually is on the Master System. Next we have a pretty forgettable game. This is Enduro Racer, and just kind of a motocross isometric style view racing game. Not too bad, but you know, I think it was one of the earlier releases, so not a whole lot going on with it. Next is a series of games. I do have, I believe, all of the releases that came out for the Master System. And this is a Sega shooter series called Fantasy Zone. This was the original, kind of based on the arcade game. I don't really get too into Fantasy Zone. I think they're just, the pastel colors of it is just a little bit too much for my eyes. And it's really hard for me to focus on the action in the game. So this one's passable, I would say, but not one of my favorites. Then you get into the sequels to that. And you have Fantasy Zone 2. This one is improved a little bit. I was playing it earlier today. It's not too bad, but again, just the eye-searing pastel is a little bit too much. And then finally you have the kind of the most awkward Phantasy Star game. This is Fantasy Zone, or not Phantasy Star, Fantasy Zone. This is Fantasy Zone The Maze. And this one was more of like a Pac-Man style Fantasy Zone game. Very quirky. This one I would say I like just because it's something different. But I, again, highly doubt this game sold very well. So then we get into one of the light phaser games. This is Gangster Town. Again, very early release. I like that cover artwork. It's just so minimal. But, you know, nothing too crazy here. But if you do like the light phaser games, it's worth a play. None of the light phaser games, I would say, are actually bad games. They're just very forgettable. Next we have Ghostbusters. This one barely ever played at all. It's nothing like the Ghostbusters for the Genesis, which is actually a very good quality compile game. This one is just, I don't know, whatever. Very forgettable. Next is one of my all-time favorites on the Master System. This is Galius, Valley of Doom. And I would say if you like games like Zelda 1, this is about the closest you're going to get to a quality type game like that on the Master System. This game was developed by Compile, the famous shooter developer, so it was very outside of their style at the time. But this game is great, and the only thing I would say is a downside is you have to use a password for once you get through the levels and you want to quit playing for the day. Kind of gets annoying punching in a password every time. But other than that, highly recommend this game. A lot of fun to play. Then we have another of the minimalistic Master System art. This is Great Baseball. I would say it's mildly average baseball at best. But yeah, if you have to have a sports game, there's a lot of these great titled series games on the system. Next we have another heavily Japanese/Asian themed game for the system. This is Kidon. This game is incredibly heavy on Japanese history, and I can't imagine it being a big hit with a US audience, not understanding any of what's going on. I would kind of liken it a little bit to Ninja Spirit on the TurboGrafx, and also somewhat like Namco's series, which I'm trying to remember the name of, but it was like the Genji and Heike clans or whatever. Again, very heavy on prehistoric, Japanese history, very old Japanese history. So if you like that kind of stuff, you might enjoy that game. Next is another action RPG. This is Lord of the Sword. And if Galius is like Zelda 1, I would say this one is more like Zelda 2. Side-scrolling, it's okay. I was playing it a little bit today as well. Has good music, but the one thing that kills this game for me is you have to push up on the controller to jump. And I just hate games that make you do that. There is no dedicated jump button. It really makes for kind of sloppy control, and I think that kills it. One thing I will say is this one has great front cover artwork, unlike the majority of these games. So at least they were putting a little bit of effort in it by the time this game came out. Next, we have a very common game for the system. This is Monopoly. I mean, it's Monopoly for your Master System, so how can you really go wrong? I played a ton of Monopoly on NES when I was a kid. This is a similar version to that, and if you like Monopoly, it's cool. This one actually had a battery in the cartridge, so you could save your progress, which I wish Galius did, but, whatever. It's okay. Next we have the Ninja, again with the very crude, the artwork by Ricky, age 7, I would say. I don't know what was going on there. Forgettable ninja action game, and I do like ninja action games, but this one's not so hot. Next we have one of my all-time favorite arcade games, which is Outrun, but the Master System version kind of sucks. So, I'm sure it was good at the time, but nothing really fantastic. Then we have a total gem of the Master System library. This is Penguin Land. It is a super cute puzzle game with, again, a battery save function, which is nice. Really good looking early graphics on it. Very fun to play, but devilishly hard. I mean, I can't imagine if a kid got this for Christmas back in the late 80s that they could have stuck with it for very long, because this game gets so difficult so quick. I have no idea how many levels are actually in it, but I would love to see somebody be able to beat it, because I'm sure it's a absolute treat, to get all the way through this game. Next is one I got very recently, so I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but this is considered one of the classics of the Master System. This is the origin of the Phantasy Star series, and definitely a well-regarded game. Very interested in checking that out at some point. But yeah, heard very good things about this game. Next we have an obscure Sega arcade franchise. I've only seen the arcade version of this one time. This is Quartet, and this is one that you really couldn't get on other Sega systems later on, so if you want a home version of it, this pretty much has to do. Very interesting arcade game. I do actually like it, and I would say this is worth picking up for your Master System. It's not a super common game, but worth tracking down for sure. And next we have another famous port that the Master System was lucky enough to get. This is the classic shooter RType by Irem. Did make it to the Master System as well as many other systems of its era. Master System port holds up pretty good. It's not too bad, and also supports the FM sound, so it sounds really good if you do have that adapter. But, worth playing if you don't have one of the more advanced versions of this game. Next is one of my favorites of the Master System. This is Rastan by Taito, and has actually really good artwork on the cover, unlike most of these other games. Rastan is this barbarian character, and really fun action platformer. Challenging, it has this strange mega jump function to it that makes it a little bit difficult, but well worth playing on the Master System, and it was hard to find an arcade port of this game at the time. Now you can get it on some of those Taito collections, but definitely well worth picking up for your Master System. And also has good sound with that FM sound adapter. Then we get into a game I don't think I've barely even played. This is Rambo First Blood Part 2. Couldn't really tell you much about this one, but looks to be an overhead run and gun. Might be okay. And then we have a sequel to that, which is Rambo 3, and this one's a little bit different because it actually supports the light phaser. So if you like some light gun action, this is another way to get that. Very unusual, like I said, to see licensed characters on the Master System. Almost everything they had was either a Sega arcade game or a unique franchise developed just for the system. There was not a whole lot of licensed games. Next is another light phaser game. This is Rescue Mission. This one I actually do enjoy. It's pretty good. And, I don't know, just your typical, Vietnam War style game. Another arcade classic ported to the Master System is Shinobi, and I do think this version holds up pretty good. The original Shinobi was not available on the Genesis, so this is probably the best way to play it. You could get it on the NES, but I do think this version is better. So, if you want an early version of the original arcade game, this is the way to go. And, pretty fun. Next is a game I have not played, but I picked it up just because I didn't think I would see it again. This is Space Harrier 3D, and to play this you do need the 3D glasses, which I just have not been able to find yet. So, do like the Space Harrier series, and I have played this on a friend's 3D glasses, and it actually does look really cool. So, definitely cool technology that they were able to put into use on the Master System. I think there was about 7 games that supported the 3D glasses in total. This game is a European release, and the European Master System had so many more games in the library than what we got in the US. This is a port of Taito's arcade hit Special Criminal Investigation, or as most people would know it as the sequel to Chase HQ. Probably not completely memorable on the system, but I just happened to get it for cheap a long time ago, and I thought the cover artwork was pretty cool. Next is another game that Sega released themselves. This is Spellcaster. Pretty cool game, and the prequel to Miracle Warriors on the Genesis. This one I would recommend. I do think it's pretty fun, and one you don't see too often. Then we have another Irem arcade port. This is Vigilante. This game is very good, but at the same time, the Turbo Graphics version is better, so it's not like an essential one to own. But, they did a pretty nice job with porting this to the Master System, I would say. Then we get into one of my favorite series on the Master System. This is Wonder Boy. This is the second game in the series, I believe. This is Wonder Boy in Monster Land. And this one is very well playing. It's a prequel to the game that came out on the Genesis. It's a very convoluted series, but this is part of the action RPG subset of the Wonder Boy series. There also were shooting games and strictly platformer games in that series. So this one is very well done. Then we have the next game in the series that, again, is part of this very convoluted series numbering. This is Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap, and beautiful cover on this game. I actually really think they did a nice job with it. Just more great Wonder Boy stuff. I don't know, I really like this series. Then we have World Grand Prix. Pretty forgettable, early racing style game. Nothing too exciting there. Looks about like most of the other pole position clones of the time. And that is it for boxed games that I have for the system. I do have just a small stack of loose games, so I'll show you those now. First one of these is Action Fighter. I think this is kind of supposed to be like the Spy Hunter of the series, but it's been so long since I played it, it's hard for me to remember. One thing I'll talk about on the cartridges is they're very annoying because they have no end label at all, so that's one of the reasons why I always like to get these games in the box. Then we have Great Football, because of course there's all those games in the Great series. We have Zillion 2 Tri-Formation. This is a very unique game that Sega released. Not too bad. A game that I have a lot of history with. This is Montezuma's Revenge. I used to play this on the Apple II computer when I was a kid, so I was very excited that this actually got a console release on the Master System, and would love to track this one down complete. Very, very cool early action-adventure game. This is another one I would definitely like to get complete. This is Dead Angle. Very interesting light gun game. It was an arcade port, and very obscure game. I was surprised that this came out in the US for the Master System. And then the final game in my collection is Aerial Assault. This is another really good shooter for the system. This was one of the later releases. Pretty difficult to find complete, so I was happy just to find a cartridge of it. So, anyway, that pretty much does it for all the games in my library. Again, if you know some other Master System games that I should get, please let me know in the comments. For my European fans, I would love to hear some of the exclusives that you have that you recommend for the system. I'm always looking to grab some more stuff for the system, because there seems to be some really good stuff out there that flew under the radar. So thank you for watching my video. Please leave a comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.